This church is richly blessed. I loved the prelude that Matthew gifted us with. We are fortunate to have him. We're fortunate to have Kevin, and in his absence, we're fortunate to have Dr. Catherine Kinsey leading our choir today. That's faithful, it seems to me. Consider the woman in the story. No one sees her, do they? She's just one of the invisible ones. We live in a world of the invisible, the orphan, the marginalized, the outcast, the oppressed, the poor. One of the few times I see the invisible is at a stoplight, downtown, uptown, Saturday night. If we simply don't see them, perhaps they'll go away and we don't have to deal with them because it gets messy. And there are those that can make large gifts, the text says, and that's a good thing. We thank God for them. Jesus doesn't say they're bad people because they can make large gifts. They're the ones that make the senior minister's gold medallion club, right? And the widow, well, she doesn't make the list at all. She doesn't even get the bottom rung of the gift ladder. Her gift doesn't merit any ink, any recognition. That is, with just one exception. Jesus sees her. Jesus acknowledges her, points her out. Everybody else misses her. It is interesting what Jesus doesn't do. He doesn't denigrate the gifts of the wealthy. He doesn't condemn them. He doesn't even ask his disciples to do what she has done. He simply makes an observation. And if he hadn't have done that, we would never have known about this woman. We would never known about her existence, because she's one of the invisible ones that we usually never see at all. As Barbara Brown Taylor comments, if you think tithing is heroic, try following this woman's act. She was a percentage giver, all right, 100%. She gave her all. By the way, just as Jesus is preparing to give his all. Doesn't it make you wonder? Here was a corrupt religious system. And in the verses that Lucy read for us, Jesus has called them out, had a dispute with them. He's going to die at their hands in 3 or 4 days from now. Give the last of what he has to give, his very life. Here's the woman giving her last to this corrupt group. Makes me wonder, does she do the right thing? Giving her last penny to a corrupt system, a system that Jesus has just excoriated? She gives her living to a sinful and corrupt church. She holds nothing back, but then As I've mentioned, neither does Jesus. He's about to give his life for a sinful and corrupt world. So what's faithful? What does faithful look like? It's something like this story. It passes unnoticed for the most part, while others grab the headlines. Faithful, the ones who never get their names in the headlines, or the internet, or the 11 o'clock news, or the society page. And if it did appear in one of those places, most people would say, well, who in the world is that? What's faithful look like? It looks like those who faithfully prepare and teach in our spiritual growth ministries, those who give of themselves in the various justice ministries of this church and beyond this church, those who actually do see the widows in our community and step in the gap when and where they can. What does faithful look like? It looks like those who say, I promise to love and cherish, to honor and sustain in sickness and in health, in poverty as in wealth, in the bad that may darken our days, in the good that may light our ways, and to be true to you in all things until death alone shall part us, so help me God, and then live by it. I had the privilege of visiting a couple this week who said, I do, 73 years ago, and every day continue to say, I do. That's what faithful looks like. Sometimes you and I recognize it. Sometimes faithful is easy to miss. Just look at the story of the widow. And then just before Jesus dies, what does he say? He says, if you see her, if you see those like her, if you care for the invisible ones, you are actually caring for me. Oh, so that's what faithful looks like, Jesus. So, what are we to do? Empty our bank account, sell the house and the furniture, our car, cash in our retirement, sign over our Social Security checks, give it all? That's not what Jesus asks here. Not at all. I believe that he asks Myers Park Baptist Church to open her eyes and to see those in need of spiritual food, physical food, relational food, physical shelter, spiritual home, a relational home. The invisible and hurting wounded are right here in our midst as well as out there, as well as the immigrants being rounded up and separated from families and jobs. The invisible ones. It's up to us to see them, to make them visible, to see them as Jesus saw this woman that everyone else missed. That's being faithful. You know, the question isn't and never has been, are you like the widow? That's not the question at all. The question is and always has been, are you like Jesus? Do you respond in the spirit of Jesus? Yes, do you give your time to see your talent, your gifts, your financial gifts? It's It's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk. It's being who you say you are. It's doing what you say you'll do, and then doing it when no one is looking. It's character, it's integrity, it's called faithfulness. In Isak Dinason's book, Out of Africa, she tells the story of a young Kikutu boy named Kitao. Kitao appears at her door one day and asks if he might find work. He begins to work for her, and he is a wonderful worker, a wonderful employee, fine servant. But just 3 months later, he comes to her again and asks for a letter of recommendation to Sheikh Ali bin Salim, a Muslim in Mombasa. She's upset at the thought of losing this wonderful employee, and so she offers a raise to him. But he's firm about leaving. He says, I've decided that I will become either a Christian or a Muslim. And my whole purpose of coming to live with you is to see the ways and the habits of Christians up close. Whoa. And I'm going to work for 3 months for Sheikh Ali to see how Muslims behave. And then I'll decide. Aghast, she writes, I believe that even an archbishop, when he had these facts before him, would have said, or at least thought, as I said, good grief, Kitao, you might have at least told me when you came here. There's no shortage of people in our world who say, I believe, or I stand for the right thing. There have always been plenty of those people. But God has a shortage of people who will go where God calls them. Are we faithful? Do you open your eyes and see the invisible as Jesus did? You know, it's easy for people around us to read us. I invite you, look in a mirror, a full-length mirror. Is it only your mouth that's moving, or is it your feet as well? If it's not your feet, then perhaps faithful is not an apt description of your life or my life. So, we're results people. We want to see results. What are the end result of our faithfulness? Guess what? Most times we'll never know. Never. Leslie was born into humble circumstances. His father, also Leslie, abused his mother, beat his mother, and she finally left him when Leslie Jr. was a young man. His mother found a new husband at Grace Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who would love her and her son. The new husband's name was Gerald R. Ford. And the new husband gave Leslie his name. And so Leslie King became Gerald R. Ford Jr. When Jerry was a senior in high school, it was the middle of the Depression. The family had no resources to send him to college. The principal of the high school called Jerry into his office and said, "Jerry, what are you going to do after you graduate from high school? Are you going to college?" And he said, "Oh, no, I'm going to work to help support the family. We don't have money for me to go to college." The principal wasn't willing to settle for that. Remember, this was during the Depression. Money was difficult to come by. But this principal loaned Jerry $100 and said, "I want you to go to the University of Michigan for 1 year." When former President Gerald Ford was at the University of Michigan campus for the groundbreaking of the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy, he stuck a shovel in the ground and he said to the crowd, "I remember when I was a freshman here on a cold, windy January day, I walked across this empty lot and I thought, I wonder what they'll do with this lot someday." And here he stood, 70 years later, because one man was faithful and invested in his life. Imagine that. What an investment. What a return on that $100 given by a principal during the Depression to a student who belonged in college. Well, is the principal's name on that building? No. Was he faithful? Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you never know what the results of faithfulness will be. And we're in the time of stewardship emphasis, and so I think it's time for us to consider what faithful looks like there. I think we ask ourselves, does what I give truly reflect the gratitude that I have for what God has done in my life? And I'm just serious as I can be. It's not about raising a budget or paying the bills. It's about our spiritual well-being, our faithfulness. It's about our need to be faithful stewards, much more than it is any organization that needs our money. One never knows what the fruits of faithfulness will be, and that's not an important issue. The important thing is for us to be faithful. Since I've been here, I've had lunch with a friend several times that was a friend for 16 or 17 years. And during lunch, he said something that kind of hit me straight between the eyes. He said, "Layne, you're not working on your resume anymore. You're working on your obituary." Will faithful be a word that belongs in my obituary? How about yours?